Okay.
All right. There's that one and that one. Okay, guys, this is part one with Elliot. And look, I hear it, I go listen to it, but I always want to ask, pronounce your last name
Biz now.
just like it sounds. Okay. It's amazing how many times I can go listen to videos and hear how somebody's name's pronounced, only to find out that everybody's been pronouncing it wrong. And it's
That's okay.
Bisnow or something. Okay, here we go. And first, I want to ask where you're sitting because it just looks like a cool house. I know you own property in Utah. Where are you right now?
Well, I'm at Powder Mountain Ski
That's
Resort.
that's what I wondered. Okay.
Yeah, and this is our 1,500 square foot cabin
Uh
at the top of the mountain, which is ski in, ski out.
yeah.
And to the north of us is Idaho, and we're also on the border of Wyoming and Nevada, but we're here
Yeah.
in northern Utah.
I know the area a little bit, and I appreciate you calling it a cabin. I'm here in the mountains of Colorado, and I know a lot of people who have quote cabins that are monstrosities like that. That's awesome, man. The story is so good. I want to bring people to where you are. What elevation are you sitting at?
About 8,500 feet.
That's exactly where I am. Exactly. So good. We're talking on even levels here then. And your story, Elliot, as I've been reading through, it's always amazing when I get word of somebody or get wind of something. And with all the things out there, I'm amazed and I'll find out, man, I just missed this one. How did I miss this? How did I miss this story? And I'm reading about it and reading about a lot of people that I know, but I missed you guys. So in reading it, of course, that's why you're on the show. I was just intrigued with the story of how it all came back, came to be, come to fruition. But honestly, at the beginning, your story intrigues the heck out of me because what you did, as you know, would scare a lot of people to death. And yet, what a great outcome from it. And I'm sure you hear that a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that our story, Kevin, is very relatable. And, for people who just met each other, I personally didn't have a ton of friends. Two of the four of us dropped out of college, including me.
Mhm.
And none of us were, particularly brilliant. Jeremy was in a band. Brett had been selling knives for Cutco.
Yeah.
I had gotten rejected from all 7 colleges that I applied to. Jeff, was an entrepreneur and had a couple startups, but none of them had worked. And he went to American University. Brett went to George Washington. I went to Wisconsin. I mean, but our book starts with it's safe to say that if you are building a sports team, the four of us would not have been your first round draft picks. And so I think just from that opening, it's very, very relatable story. Like how did these, yeah.
Incredibly. And that's what drew me in. And even your story specifically, which they start off with yours, first in the book. It is, and I'm incredibly grateful for the candor, even of your. It took some humility for you to let them write out just what you dealt with personally. That you're that guy who came out, didn't really know what you're doing. You've been playing tennis and not really paying attention to social aspects of life and whatnot. And you come out, you think you want to start a business, and you come out with some absolute failures. One, but in even depicting your personality, that you're that guy. They called you casino floor Elliot. You're that guy who came to the event trying to sell people something, and you're the guy that I'm avoiding. I mean, absolutely. I'm an introvert, and I'm going, oh my gosh, please just don't. And that you guys divulged that is significant. That I honestly, yeah, the level of humility for you to go, okay, yeah, you guys could write that is kind of intriguing to me.
Yeah, the casino floor comment, when I finally realized in college I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I was not socially calibrated. So I did have that work ethic, but it was the classic work hard, not smart.
Uh-huh.
And I was, waking up early and pounding the phones. But the joke amongst, people who met me or my few friends was, I was like a casino floor manager. I was like, oh, come over here. You need this. I got this. You want a drink? And I was just like going, 100%, but not necessarily in the right direction. Like I had the
Mhm.
right intentions. And I think that's the beauty of when I met the other Summit co-founders. We all had something to teach and we all had a lot to learn. And I think I brought a work ethic. I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I really had no idea how to actually be an entrepreneur.
Do you look at that now and realize, as you're in communion with so many people, I've not heard that term. Maybe you wrote it. Maybe it's one that I just missed also, socially calibrated. Beautiful term. Because how many times do we see somebody and then wonder for ourselves, are we socially calibrated? How are we coming off to people? My gosh, that's gigantic. And to me, that was as big a value as anything in the book, is you just divulging that you didn't have some silver spoon pedigree to come out and run a business. You weren't just Mr. Charismatic, which we all expect that the successful entrepreneur is at some point, right? They're just extroverts that can just smooth talk people and charm their way in. And you're saying, no, I was absolutely not that. And the first few endeavors that you started, well, you started a t-shirt business in school that didn't sell any t-shirts. You started a creative consulting firm that never got a single client. You started selling ads for your dad and were terrible at the beginning. I mean, that's not the story that we generally hear. We may hear of an effort that didn't go well, but to say, no, I was not really socially connecting to people and my efforts really fell flat. You would generally hear somebody say, well, you're probably just not cut out for that. And yet the fact that that didn't really enter the conversation with you is, again, very intriguing.
Yeah, I had so little money in college that in order to save money, I actually bought beard clippers and I just shaved my head to avoid having to pay for haircuts. And then when I had to go to client meetings because I was selling advertising for this newsletter I'd started with my dad, I put on a suit and tie, like when it was totally unnecessary. I'd be going to meet with a marketing director and, they're wearing, jeans and a button down or khakis and a button down. I'm literally wearing a suit and tie. And I really had no idea what I was doing. Like here I was, 20 years old, shaved head, suit and tie. Like, I mean, really like the epitome of clueless, like really good intentions, but no idea. And I think what happened is like I was a really good listener and I didn't have a cherished outcome meaning I was not obsessed with what I was doing was right. Like I realized that I was probably wrong in a lot of areas and had a lot of growth. And so when people started giving me feedback, I was a very good listener and I adapted really well. And there's this one, story in the book where I went to this client meeting at the Palm restaurant with a gentleman who was 50 and I was 20 and I was trying to sell him some ads. And I wore a suit and tie to, like a 6 o'clock, drinks with just me and him. He said, you want to grab a drink? I said, sure. I was hoping to sell him ads. And I sit down and I just go right into my sales pitch at a suit and tie. And he's like, all right, fella, everybody slow down. Elliot, slow down. First of all, take off your blazer. Okay. Take off my blazer. He goes, take off your tie. Okay. He's like, unbutton your top 2 buttons. I'm like, okay. Roll up your shirt. He says to the waiter, can you bring us each a beer and an order of cheesy fries? And I'm, again, I have this vision that, business meetings are very formal. You have a suit and tie. You're very serious. You're doing business. And so we kind of sat there in silence until the beers arrived and then the cheesy fries. And he said, all right, listen, Elliot, everybody relax. Just be yourself. It sounds like you're doing some really interesting things. Sounds like you're a lot more than just an ad salesperson. Why don't you just tell me about yourself? And I had my sleeves rolled up and I said, I went to college. I actually dropped out of school to follow my dreams and build a business. And here I am, I'm selling ads, but it's not because I'm a career ad salesperson. It's because my dream is to be an entrepreneur. And, these sales really matter because every dollar we make, we're just investing it to build our dream. And we just really connected. And at the end of an hour, he said, okay, now tell me what you want to sell me. And I said, well, I want to sell you this for this much. And he said, well, how about, we do this, but a little less. And I said, how about this? And he said, great. And he said, now we're going to shake hands. And we shook hands and he said, that's how you do business, kid.
That's beautiful.
Like, for him, he probably forgot it. But for me, like that changed my whole life. I was like, wow. And, this guy really respects and resonates with me because he sees the entrepreneur in me. He
Yeah.
sees, really who I am. And I immediately got rid of all my suits and ties. I started dressing like how I felt was authentic to me. I started just telling people the truth. I used to not tell people how old I was or that I dropped out of school. They'd say, when'd you graduate from school? And I'd say, well, I finished in, 2006, because I didn't want to tell them I dropped out.
Right.
And, then I started saying, well, actually, I went to college for 2 years, but I left after 2 years to pursue my entrepreneurial dreams. And then suddenly I went in people's eyes from this ad salesperson, this overdressed, kind of clueless ad salesperson, to this, budding young entrepreneur who put all his chips on the table and risked everything to follow his dreams. And suddenly my meetings were 180 degrees different. Like, even if someone didn't buy the ads, like, everybody respected me. Yeah. Everyone thought, like, this guy is going for it. And things really changed when I just started being true in myself and just telling people exactly where I was.
Well, even that aspect that you share of being coachable, in essence, that you were open, that you knew that you had some lack, some weaknesses, and therefore you were open. Honestly, my past is not that. I knew enough to be fairly competent, and in that I was not that coachable. And I've got that's why I was a very mediocre pro cyclist. I was so uncoachable, good enough to get there, not good enough to listen and actually change. So again, that social calibration, I'm going to keep using that as, because we all want to know the most dangerous thing is we don't know what we don't know. And when we don't know that we're messing things up, I don't want to leave the story. So we'll come back, but I do want to hit something that I come to later on, because it's the same thing that happens as you guys in the fruition of your business. And I'm going to refer, I don't want to confuse people, but in the book, it's your Aspen event that you're talking about. This is events later, your Aspen event. You come out, you go from a free offering to a paid offering, and you just screw it up. You guys royally screwed up, but you realize it's not the concept that's bad, but we really gave it bad packaging in essence. So let's come back to you now, that you obviously either had faith or ignorance, and you can tell me which, in continuing on this role of being an entrepreneur, even though as you started, the packaging was all right. So even if the concept was good, even if you had the capacity within you, the packaging was really bad. But that is something that, in whether we're going after being an entrepreneur or going after being a whatever, an astronaut, whatever it may be, a doctor, a yada, you name it, that we start off, we generally don't just knock it out of the park right away. And we often have that question of, maybe this is not for me. And being able to look, because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. You've met somebody who wanted to be an entrepreneur and you finally just said, I'm putting this in, I have. And so, dude, it is just not a good fit for you. And yet knowing that, or knowing, okay, maybe it is, but you have it really packaged wrong, or you are the wrong package currently. That's tough to discern.
Yeah. So the concept of Summit was a very good concept. Yeah. That, on the back of the iPhone launch in, 2006, suddenly there was a revolution in startups, and basically anybody could build an app. And for the first time in history, I don't know if it was hundreds of new startups were starting a day, but just the amount of new startups and that were starting, and the shift from when I was in college, where everyone wanted to be an investment banker, that was considered the cool thing to do. Suddenly that got flipped on its head. No one wanted to go into investment banking, and everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wanted to build their dream. And there's this new generation of entrepreneurs. Of course, the famous startups were, Twitter and Airbnb and Uber and Facebook and YouTube. But if there were thousands and tens of thousands, and this new generation of startups, there were no events or community for these people. So that's the concept of Summit. Just like a great music festival, in any genre, brings the music lovers of that genre together. Summit events brought together, the subset of entrepreneurs building startups, but also there's a whole new wave of nonprofits that was starting. It wasn't just, when I grew up, it was these big old school nonprofits like the UNICEFs of the world. There were not the, new small, nonprofits, like the Charity Waters.
Right.
And then it was just the new approach to everything, the new consumer products that we're launching. Like if we look at all the consumer products we use today, whether it's the food we eat, the beverages we drink, like almost all of these companies were started in the last 10 years, right? It's really mind blowing. Like just look around at all the things that you're using, you know, the candles made by a new candle company, right? Like everything, when Etsy was built, not only is Etsy a startup, but that empowered, I don't know if it's millions of startups or hundreds of thousands. So there is a startup revolution happening after 2006. And Summit was the place to gather this next generation of startup founders. And the first event was 19 people. It was free. I charged it on credit cards. The next event was 60 people. It was free. We got some sponsors as well to cover the cost. And going into the third event, we really wanted to wow people. But I was still, as you pointed out, not socially calibrated. And so we tried to wow people in the wrong way by doing the event in Aspen, Colorado, which is a beautiful place, but it's a very old school, elite place for, wealthy, successful people who've already made it and their families. And I was trying, we were trying to bring, people in their 20s and 30s. And we booked the St. Regis Hotel thinking like, this is going to put Summit on the map. Yeah. Of course, what would have put us even more on the map was, something that had the wow factor, which we would do later, but, resonated more with people, whether it was an amazing, outdoor trip like Summit Outside we did in 2013. That was a camping trip for 800 people, or events where we would encourage everyone to go skydiving or river rafting trips, or, events we've done in the jungle of Costa Rica. But of all the possibilities and all the wild things we could do, we thought, we're going to go to this kind of stiff corporate place, Aspen. And on top of that, we didn't message the event properly. And the whole thing was kind of a slowly unwinding disaster. It didn't make sense. The location, the way we communicated to people, we needed to charge for tickets, and I didn't communicate that properly. So anyway, it was just, for every, one step forward, you sometimes take 2 or 3 steps back.
Can I give quick context if I got it right? I mean, you had done the first event and it was kind of goofy, but it kind of worked out. Yeah. And then you did the second event again. You did it for free. It kind of worked out. Then you did the Washington event, I think. Yeah. Again, kind of a pretty significant feather in your hat. Then you got this Aspen one, and boom, it was again. You went to paid. You really upset a lot of the people who had been involved. The very community you were trying to build. And I mean, you guys wrote in the book, you literally had, or at least some of you had the thought of maybe this is it. It's over. That's just not what we want to see. If we have a little success, we expect it to continue down that pathway. You guys took a dive bomb and questioned stopping or not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think most companies iterate, whether it's their product or their pricing model, whether it's, Netflix or Spotify increasing pricing or coming out with different plans. It's just inevitable, right? Yeah. That like most businesses, Amazon Prime raising prices, like things change. And the key is communication. Why are the customers paying more? How is this also better for the customers? And I think we came to that inflection moment where, we needed to sell tickets because we wanted to grow the size of the events, because they're actually, like we talked about at the beginning, the concept of Summit was very good. We were at the forefront of this kind of startup revolution, and a lot of people, thousands of entrepreneurs wanted to come to Summit events. So we wanted to grow the community. And in order to grow the community, we couldn't just do free events and cover the cost of 30 or 50 people with sponsors. And so we had to sell tickets. But herein lies the problem, that our messaging was absolutely terrible. We didn't explain to people, we didn't call people. And so suddenly people who'd gotten one thing, felt retraded and completely let down.
And explain real quick, just for context for people who don't know of Summit, what it is. I mean, it's not just a paid event. You go there and it's like I'm getting ready next week. I'm going to, I don't go to a lot of things, but this is Podcast Movement, one of the biggest podcasting events. And I'm going to meet up with my ad agencies and some, specific people. They're all going to be there. So it's a good time for face-to-face. You pay, I don't know, it's $400 or $500 or so and go for a handful of days. There's lots of events. That is not what you guys are doing. So just give a comparison to, it's not that, it's this.
Yeah, Summit is more music festival meets wellness event meets TED Talks.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's half men, half women. It's extremely socioeconomically diverse. The attendees are from all around the globe. The programming traditionally goes 24 hours a day. So we'll have talks at 1 a.m. about death. We'll have late night pop-up food sessions. We'll have people waking up early to do morning wellness events while other people are still, at night listening to, their favorite music, deep into the morning. We'll have huge keynotes. We've had everyone from, Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos to, Martha Stewart, Shonda Rhimes, et cetera. Like we've had, 1,000+ speakers over the years. And it's a surreal, high energy gathering, very open group. Like you can go up and kind of talk to anyone. And so, yeah, it really resonated and people were very attracted to it from the beginning. And I think the key was just, how do you evolve something? Again, we've moved Summit to lots of different locations over the years. We've changed how we do content, how we do programming, but it's all about communication.
Well, speak to that because I went through, this has been 6-7 years ago. I went through a handful of years of putting on events. I put on 12 events. I'd rent out camps up here in the mountains of Colorado and do those. And I had every moment filled. Actually got called out then by a great lady at some point. She says, Kevin, you got us up here in these pristine Rocky Mountains and you give us no time to go experience them. And I could also put on there and to experience each other because you wrote about that in the book. I mean, your first event, you had really no specific agenda set out. And I'm over here and I think where most people are thinking, I've got an event, man, I have to fill every minute with something of value. And you talk, and I don't know how many chapters in, about leaving room for spontaneity and randomness. So even as you just talked about some of the things that you have, how much time is left or intended for spontaneity, randomness, and I would also say just social connection with the people you're there with?
Yeah, when you put on an event, I mean, the most important thing by far is the location and the setting, right? You could have the best content and the best people, but if you're in a really uninspiring, subterranean, meaning underground conference room with no windows, everyone's going to lose their mind. So for Summit,
and you're speaking to the hotel conference room that so many people book out and have. There's no windows. It's the blank walls, and that's where we do it.
Yeah. So the first thing with any event is you want to have an inspiring location. And as the events get bigger, that gets more and more difficult. But certainly when it's under a few hundred people, there's lots of options of how to do it and where to do it in an inspiring place. You can get a really cool all-inclusive hotel and, Maya Riviera, Mexico, which is where we've done an event, or, in Tulum, or, in Nosara, Costa Rica, or, our upcoming event is in Palm Springs, right? Like at La Quinta Resort, right? La Quinta is a one-level resort with all these bungalows. It's all outdoors. So I think the first thing is you really need an inspiring location. The second thing is you really need to put effort into the people who attend. And there has to be some element of either letting people self-select into the event or really just putting some effort into who comes. And so I think the best way to do an event, when I say self-select, is by putting together specific programming. Certain people will want to not go. And to have a successful event, you don't want everyone to come, right? You want the people to, it would be like if you ever went to a yoga class or let's say a workout, and they had just marketed the yoga class or workout to every possible person. And so where there's people in the workout at the CrossFit or the Barry's boot camp who's just like, we're totally uninterested in fitness. Or in the yoga class, someone who just didn't like yoga. Like it would kind of ruin the vibe for everyone, right? Like one bad apple can spoil the bunch. So the key is like, you really want the people that attend the event, like everyone to be on the same wavelength. And so how could you do that? You could have material in the invitation that says, Summit is an event all about connecting with other people, and don't snub the startups and don't fanboy the big timers. So no matter who it is, we expect everyone to engage with everyone else. Well, someone who's kind of standoffish or feels above other people is not going to want to come to that event. Or you might say, we're going to be assigning seating for some of the meals and you'll be meeting random people. Well, only open people will attend that event. So in terms of the types of people, it's much more about openness and people who want to listen and want to meet people than it is about successful people who might be standoffish.
And even what you just said a minute ago, talking about, hey, it's almost 24-hour programming. There may be a talk at 1 o'clock about death. Right there, you just lost a bunch of people. And I'll pick on them because I come from this group, the conservative type folks who listen. They go, that's not my cup of tea. They want to go to the place where there's going to be somebody in a blazer and a tie, and it's a more formal thing. And you're saying that this is not that. So is it easier in that sense? We tend to think about being inclusive as there's much value in putting some things out there that are going to self-select, exclude, and kind of be exclusive, saying if this is.
Well, you want to create exclusivity, not by putting up a fence or a wall and saying who can come or who cannot come. You want something to feel exclusive by letting people self-select into something. Like, let's say I put together, I don't know, I just saw a new book by Colin O'Brady called The 12-Hour Walk.
And he was on the show about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, let's just say the people who choose to go on a 12-hour walk, that's an exclusive group. Not because they get let in or voted in or some elitist system. It's exclusive because any person who wants to do a 12-hour walk is a very committed person.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have this exclusive group who've self-selected into this kind of personal journey, and they might be from every background, any political affiliation, like it doesn't matter. It's a group that is committed to kind of growth. Okay. And so I think going back to events, which are interesting because anyone can put on an event. So whether it's a dinner at your house for 8 people or something for your startup for 50 people, the location, the people you're bringing, and really making the event feel purposeful and letting people self-select in and not trying to get as many people as possible. By the way, it might be a little harder, Kevin, for the first event if not as many people self-select in, but if everyone has a great time, the virality will go up, meaning all those 50 people that came are going to refer the event to more people the next time. And then the final thing, is about programming and finding a balance of not over programming. Like, you really want events to feel spacious. When you put something on and people pay, you feel like I have to give them everything. Yeah. But if you've gone to, say, your favorite restaurant, they don't just, over ingredient the food. Like a great piece of pizza or a great pasta or a great piece of fish or salad, there's a simplicity to it. They don't just like throw the kitchen sink at it, or your favorite drink. Or in terms of, the amount of things on the menu. They don't just give you a menu with 200 items and you're like paging through, losing your mind. There's like, here's the 14 items you can order, the 18 items. So there's a simplicity, a curation you want to create where less is more. And then there's a spaciousness. Like when the event ends, we would sometimes do like 45 minutes between content sessions. So if a session goes really well, it can go over for 15 or 30 minutes. Or if a session ends and it's the right time to end, people can actually connect with folks in the room. And often the best thing that comes out of an event isn't what you heard, but it's in that content session, the people you met who also chose to go to that session. And now you have a lot in common because you're both in the, podcasting host session. And so, oh, wow, you just met 8 different people in that session, and that's your takeaway.
When you look at events like this, and I know that you guys, again, you started, this is right in the beginning of your book, even to that 3rd event of Washington. So you do your own event, and then right away you get this opportunity, somewhat right away opportunity. They're saying, gosh, you guys do this, do it for us, show us how to do that. So in that, looking at those who are looking at a first event, I want to hit that because there's a lot of people listening. We got a lot of people in this demographic who are interested in doing events. They really are attracted to that and they're wondering how to do that. But of course we look at it and go, okay, how can I do this event and really make a good profit as well? Now you went back and you lost money on your first event and ended up putting it on credit cards and you didn't have an intent to make a profit. Kind of reconcile that now with if somebody's doing that first event, you just talked about how powerful the virality of that is. Would you even espouse, say, man, do that first event, maybe don't make a lot of money, maybe don't make any, maybe even lose some, give people a great experience they'll talk about so you can use that for your next events. Where do you fall there?
My recommendation, anytime someone is doing a first event, is to do it in a city as cheaply as possible for as small a group as possible. So if you're thinking, for example, I want to do 100 people at this beautiful nature retreat, I may suggest to do 30 people at kind of a magical spot in a city where you don't need to provide them housing, where it's very easy to program the dinners, where you just don't need to spend a lot of money. But the thing is, an event is like a product. It's like the first iPhone or the first any product that you've used, right? The first version of Spotify, the first version of a Tesla car, right? Like your first event is a beta, it's a test. And a lot of things you thought would work are not going to work. And the challenge with an event is that it's all happening real time, right? And you can't fix it once the events start. You got to wait like 6 more months to do the next event or a year. And so unlike a website where you can just like tweak and change some code or an app and like update it over the next few days or the next week, and suddenly everyone else gets it right, there's a lot to mess up on the first event. And so by starting small, not spending a lot of money, skip the perfunctory stuff, the extemporaneous things, right? Like the glitter on the outside. Like let's just say, do an event in LA for 30 people in find someone's backyard and, just, get tables, chairs. You can, do a fun outdoor barbecue, put some uplighting at night, and really make sure you have the content and the programming and the types of people right. Really bring the early group, those first 30 people together. And again, to take an example, Uber spent 2 years in New York and San Francisco before they launched another market.
Right.
And then I forget if they launched 10 or 20 cities the next year, but it was basically like your typical hockey stick. It was like 2 years for 2 cities. And then it was like 10 cities, 100 cities, 300 cities, something crazy like that. And I would really focus on that first event to like really nail the find who's going to be in charge of your production. Find what the kind of food vibe is you want to go for. Don't do what so many startups do, which is, raise $1 million, go off for a year, don't show anyone your product and do like this big announcement and launch it. And it turns out it's not what people wanted.
Right.
Let the first event breathe, show it to people, let them critique, bring them in, have content sessions on what do they want to see at your future events, and then rocket ship from there.
Yeah, you just depicted, and I'm older than you, and I'm old enough. I don't know if you go back this far, but where you go, you start the business, or you're getting ready to start the business, you go and you make all the letterhead and the business cards, and a year later, when it didn't work out, you're using those for the neighborhood campfire, and you're thinking, why did I spend $1,000 on letterhead on this thing that we had to change the logo the next day anyways, or it didn't work?
Yeah, like let's just say that we were passionate about getting all the podcast hosts together. Like you go to an event like that, and let's just say I wanted to start that event. Rather than doing this big splash and raising all this money, the best thing might be, Kevin, let's get 20 people together in a city, really simple. They pay for their own hotel rooms. I've got a friend's backyard or a friend's house we can host it in. Here's how we can engage everyone. Like, let's just get the first one done. Let's do it in a month. So, do the first one quickly. No, like we have a term, low cost, high cool. So make it cool, as cool as possible for as little money as possible. Instead of kind of the opposite would be like, all right, Kevin, for our first podcasting event, let's try to get 300 podcasters. I'm booking out the one hotel in Miami. It's going to cost $700,000 to do the event. I'm going to go pitch all these, like, wow, that is a lot to lose.
Right.
I'm going to get all these sponsors. Like our first event, I lost like, I think it was $7,000 or something. And the whole budget was like $30,000. And I got about $20,000 of sponsors. Right. So, keep it small, keep it thoughtful, build out the team. That is the way to start an event, and know that once you get your team right, once you have the vision right, you really can have that, hockey stick growth.
So let's talk about two things: content versus experience. And then also, as you talked about, attendees versus just presenters. So if we start off with, I mean, content, it seems like so many of the events are touting who that big keynote speaker or speakers are, kind of like the Oprah thing. If Oprah says your book's cool, everybody's going to buy it. Now, I don't know this for sure, but there's got to be some book where Oprah was really sad and had too much to drink. And she, then promoted this book and it really stunk. And a lot of people bought it at first, but they didn't continue to do that. It's got to happen with events too, because we can go, and you know that better than I do. I mean, you can go spend enough money and get a big keynote speaker that then everybody comes to hear, and the event falls flat because of the experience. Can you fail on the other side as well, where you do a lot of experience, but not have a lot of good content? Or which way would you err?
Yeah, so having an event that has a model based on paying keynote speakers is a tough path,
Okay.
because it's kind of like having a sports team that, rather than put in the work to build out your single, double, and triple A baseball, or to build out your rookie NBA rosters and build them the right way, instead spends money on players. Like, it's a very expensive way to go, and it relies a lot on chance that you can actually book people, because even expensive speakers these days, you can't necessarily book them. And a lot of the best speakers, there is no price. A lot of these people have made so much money, there is no price that they'll come speak for. And so I think building an event model that focuses more on the experience, focuses more on up and coming speakers who you don't have to pay, or you can give them free flights and hotel, focuses more on the people coming and connecting with each other. Big speakers do help, of course, but it's just that risk versus reward. Like, to get a big speaker now, these speakers can be 30,000, 50,000, 100,000. And again, there's speakers who are 2, 3, 400,000 if you're trying to get big names.
Right.
You could take that $100,000 budget that might get you two $50,000 speakers, and, you can spend it on a more surreal location and venue, right? Because that's something in your control. And that's, by the way, a better experience. If you think about it, Kevin, are you going to have a better experience for 35 minutes watching a famous person, or going to this super awesome venue with really cool local chefs and really cool nightlife, with great music, and, where that $100,000 can go a really long way, and allocating it to a 35-minute talk can be problematic. And I think there is something to be said for big speakers, but you have to be cautious that's like they put all your eggs in one basket, and suddenly you took your whole budget and you put it on speakers. Get yourself in some trouble.
Okay, well then the other aspect that Summit exemplifies is that I don't think many people think of at all is attendees, not verse presenters, but attendees and presenters. We look generally at the presenters, and you put so much focus. I mean, your first event was only about the attendees. There wasn't a speaker. There wasn't some premise. It was just, hey, we're going to get these cool people together. So, hey, these guys, you got your initial couple guys and your third and your fourth guys. And you told the next person, hey, so-and-so's coming. And they just wanted to go hang with them. Again, that is so not the norm. And even as you have done that, I don't see that proliferating a lot. I don't see a lot of offerings for events that are talking about the attendees that you're going to be hanging out with, and that are going to be at the party, or are going to be hanging out in between sessions. That is that as rare still as I feel like it is, even though you guys have succeeded greatly with it?
I mean, look, I just think it's kind of a sad state to go to an event filled with people, and then nobody has interest in meeting the other people. Like, I think a lot of the events I see do it right. There's the Food Expo, which is about meeting all the other people in the food industry. An event like Burning Man is all about actually people building the event. That's what's so cool, is they actually, I think the reason from an event standpoint, Burning Man's so impressive, they actually empower the attendees to create the event. Coachella, of course, they have famous musicians, but really it's the scenic Coachella and all the interesting music lovers that are there. And I think trying to celebrate the people who are going, again, going back, let's say we're doing a podcasting event, empowering each of the attendees to get on stage for 2 minutes and share their biggest secret to podcasting. And now you have 20 people each doing 2 minutes, each sharing their secret to podcasting. Or, we do speed networking sessions where, you can basically meet a new person every 2 minutes. And, you can actually go around in an hour, meet, 20 plus people. So, again, there is a value like at an event where everyone wants to listen to a person on a stage. Of course, who doesn't want to hear Jeff Bezos or some well-known person speak? But empowering the attendees to lead sessions, empowering the attendees to meet each other, it's just that's what people really take from events. Like when you look back 10 years, Kevin, to events you've been, the thing you probably took with you is like, oh, I met these people at that event. So I think nothing will ever trump meeting people at an event. There will never be a content session, in my view, that will be more impactful than new best friends or lifelong relationships you met at an event.
Okay, and I want people to hear that on a couple levels that I'll come to real quick. Because as you're talking about that, I'm going to this event now, and I'm going, and I literally, have my schedule filled with people that I'm meeting specifically. I don't know the tracks there. So if I have extra time, I'll see, hey, what's happening. And if I'm going to go attend a content session, I'm there for the people. But how much more would I be interested and would have paid if they said, if I got a note saying, hey, Kevin, because they can go look at my rankings and my downloads and say, we've got a session that's 20 people or 100 people that are all right they're your exact peers with downloads and whatever. They're right at the size you are. You guys can talk about where you're at and what you're going to do to grow and whatnot. And here's another session. And what would I pay for here for people who are right where you are? And they tripled where they're at. And this is how they did it. I would pay so much for that individual curation, but I've not experienced it. Again, I'm just going there and doing what I'm going to do. That would be tremendous. And, in that light of you talking about, in a sense, curating the group that's going to be there. I mean, people listening here right now, whether they don't want to do events or not, we talk so much about just like mastermind groups or just a group that you meet with every week to do life with or talk business with or whatnot too. And you pointing us into the spirit of the group of handpicking or curating or again, making that self-selected inclusion or exclusivity is significant. That's something that we can do in our daily lives with friend groups on up to the events. Yes.
Yeah. And look, I've gone to a mastermind where they've broken the group either into small groups of 6 or 8, or if it's like a 20 or 30 person mastermind, everyone in a circle, and literally asked every person, what is the one thing you need help with?
Yeah.
And then on the spot, try to get 3 to 5 people to be able to help you with that thing on the spot. I need help, doing XYZ. And then on the spot, someone's taking notes and someone's like, oh, I could help you with this. And I could help you with this. I mean, I've had a few of those that my mind was blown. So that's like the kind of thing an event can do, is to empower the attendees to help each other, because it's frankly disempowering when the attendees are kind of viewed as like livestock, just there to look up at the stage. And look, I'll just say the last thing on this is events have a real uphill battle when every single speaker they can book, you can watch hundreds of their talks on the exact same topics online. Yeah. Like, why do I need to see Elon Musk in person? I mean, I guess it would be a good energy in the room and it would be quote unquote cool, but every possible thing he's going to say, I can just watch it. And I probably already watched it. So there is no speaker on a stage that you can't just watch everything they're going to say. Like, do I need to see Simon Sinek in person? I've seen every video he's done online. So again, I think if you are going to have speakers, it's important also that if Simon Sinek's coming, it's interactive in some way, or he gives a challenge to the group based on who they are. I think, event hosts just really need to up their game, because we're in this content revolution where everything's been said. Like, if I went to speak at an event, like, what am I going to say that people can't just find online that I've said? So they need to say, Elliot, Like, here's the exact topic we want you to tackle. Or Elliot, can you moderate, this group, and do a real live interactive session?
I looked at your next event in Palm Springs and saw that Mark Hyman's going to be there. The opportunity to ask him one question, a personal question, is worth going. So I resonate.
Yeah, for us, for the speakers, we do what I'm saying. I mean, we do, talks in the round. We're very, very particular that if basically, with very few exceptions, anybody speaks, they have to stay for the entire event. So now, Mark Hyman's going, he's also there for 3 days. Like, we don't really have people, jump in for an hour and leave. And, of course, it does happen with certain people's schedule, but for the most part, like, our intention is people stay. And then again, we're very focused on our actual programming. Like, we will attach a talk to, some form of breakout sessions. We're not just putting people on stages and then you're listening to someone lecture you. Like, we'll do very interesting. If we have a talk, it'll often be on a timely topic. And we'll be very thoughtful with the moderator and what they're asking and make sure it's not, something they've heard other places. But again, the bottom line is, like, you can't just get lazy with your content and throw someone on stage. You need to be extremely creative, or, you're not going to deliver for the attendees.
Well, you obviously have, because I signed up as your website. I'm sitting there thinking, I hope that they pick me. And that's not the general spirit that you have for most events. They're trying everything they can to woo you into pay them, because they'll take anybody. You, at the end of the story about the Aspen event, you talk about your mind shift as a group. As you go back now and audit what you did initially, how you presented it, and you said it wasn't for the attendees. Now we are crafting it. It is for the attendees. It's for the community. And it reminded me of Donald Miller of Story Brand, fame, of talking about the customer is the hero. We got to craft this. This is not about us. And that's, again, such a shift. It seems so elementary for me to say, and yet I have violated it so many times. And I go back and look at the offering, look at the website, look at the event, and go, man, we were just touting us, and I didn't make it about them. And it's such a big shift, but so counterintuitive to our initial promotions. And that's a big one that you guys came to.
Yeah, look, our ground rule for events is that every single piece of programming at the event and the entire experience, every bit of it, should be something that we are really excited about. So presumably, if you're hosting an event, let's just say you're a window manufacturer and you're just obsessed with the quality of windows and glass, or you're a coffee manufacturer and you're obsessed with coffee. Like, presumably, if you're hosting an event, you're obsessed with the topic, right? So whether you're a window manufacturer or obsessed with coffee and you're doing an event for coffee purveyors or window manufacturers, like, you should be obsessed with everything happening at the event. And we try to put ourselves in the attendee seat, and we make sure, okay, what is the check-in process like? Would I be happy, waiting in line? Or what gifts would I want when I attend? Or, do I want to arrive a day early? And what do I want to do when I arrive a day early? Or what time would I want the programming to start in the morning? Do I want to start at 8 a.m. or do I want it to, the first talk to be at 10 so I don't feel pressure? Like a talk that starts too early in the morning can ruin the night before because you're having so much fun and you feel like you have to go to sleep. Or we've had another problem in the past, Kevin, where we will try to pack in content. So we'd start these talks at like 8:30, 10, 11:30 a.m. And our view was that, well, if people go out late, they'll just skip the 8:30. What happened was the content was so good at 8:30 is that everyone went out till 3 or 4 in the morning and then woke up to go. And so the whole room was like zombies. And so, we're just thinking, okay, what do I want? Like, if I go to bed, earlier at 10, 11, 12, 1, wake up, have a leisurely breakfast. Like, I don't want to be forced to go to early content. Okay, what kind of, what if all the fitness and wellness is during content? Well, then people have to pick between being healthy and going to content. Yeah. So make the event for yourself. And every single item, you ask yourself, is that something that I want to do? Or is that something I don't want to do? And hopefully the entire event is something where you, and this is why it's so fun to have co-founders, where you or your partners, like, everybody's obsessed with the different parts of the event.
Speak to it from the attendee standpoint. So whoever, we're talking about it from hey, if you want to put on an event, but on the other side, if you're an attendee looking at it, how would you have folks vet an event if it's going to fit them, one, and two, how to get the most out of an event? And I'm coming with a chip on my shoulder in that one from I think we so often go after things, especially in the personal development and self-help aspect, even health and wellness, and go, oh, I hope this will work for me. And my thought is, if that's your perspective, it's not. You're going to work for you or not. Now, obviously, there's got to be something there, but help us with the mindset of, as an attendee, yeah, one, again, vetting what event is right for you. And then two, how to even prepare yourself mentally to get the most out of it instead of sabotaging yourself by looking at it with a wrong perspective.
I mean, in general, my mindset the last, say, 10 years is I try to do a few personal growth experiences a year. Okay. So that's like my mindset. Every year, I should do some personal growth experiences. That could be a 12-hour walk, like Colin O'Brady says in his book. Yeah. That could be someone's, 30-day no alcohol challenge. That could be, a personal fitness challenge for myself. It could be going to an interesting and kind of inspiring new place with my family. Or, I will try to go to a few events a year that I think, speak to me. And I think it's important, like, that we don't, that we're not kind of robotic. And there's different times in our life that we need different things. Yeah. There may be a time in our life we need something that's, more quiet, more introspective, more soulful. And maybe that's for you. There may be something where you need like just a very inspiring Tony Robbins type thing. There may be there may be something where you need like a real industry event. So I think first and foremost, just like trying to step back at the beginning of the year and within your goals for the year, like trying to do a few things that are like really for personal growth. And then I think when you get to the event, we have a few guidelines, but, try to go on a learning safari, try to have your phone off, try to really engage, and know that, the best thing to probably come out of the event is going to be the people that you meet.
Well, and you're, again, going back to your personal story of the casino floor, Elliot too, I have, and I'm aware even with myself, and we all like to talk about ourselves. We would love somebody to come up and go, oh, I know about you, or I'm interested in what you're doing. Tell me about that. And talk about that. And yet how often can we spend the whole time talking about ourselves, in which case we learn absolutely nothing? Is that another? I
agree.
Go tell us about that.
I agree. Okay. I mean, look, my life philosophy is to try to ask 80% questions. So yeah. It's only now that you're asking me questions, I'm talking, but normally I just ask questions the whole time. And that is, of course, the best way to learn anything. And I actually, when I'll meet younger folks and I'll mentor them, one of the very first challenges I'll give most people is to spend 1 week only asking questions. And if people ask them a question, to attempt to ignore their question and to ask them a question back, which generally works. Yeah. So look, I think the going through life with the mindset of asking questions and going on a learning safari is a really, really good one. And you'll probably find that you make even better, deeper relationships by really caring about people and asking them questions.
I mean, you're on here because, I read the book, interested in you guys and your story. And I would really encourage anyone who's just looking at starting something and having fear and concerns to read the book. Again, you make it so relatable with your stories because, yeah, you guys just came together with nothing special in essence, and you made something special together and even out of yourselves. Now, with the event, though, which you guys didn't ask me to promote it, I'm not even sure. I think your next one is in November, and it's not like it's open to the world and stuff. But give us a concept of the event. You said it's in Palm Springs. How many people are going? How do you select who's going to go? Just for one, for people who may be interested, and two, just again, as people look at creating their own unique event.
Yeah, look, our events are for the entrepreneur inside of us, or the intrapreneur, meaning someone at a business who kind of thinks in an entrepreneurial quality, entrepreneurial mindset. So the event is in Palm Springs. It's 800 people. We take over the La Quinta Resort, which is all one level. The event's very outdoor based. It's very spacious. There's, good vibes, music. It's not a super rah event. Like, it feels very low key. And, the other thing we do is we have a business called Summit Junto, which is our version of the forum. So it's the same concept for the entrepreneur and all of us. And we build kind of like personal advisory boards for groups of 7 people. So those are the 2 main things we do from a business standpoint. Is people want to engage with Summit community of entrepreneurs. They'll either come to the events or they'll join Summit Junto, where we'll put together an advisory board for them of 7 people, kind of at their professional level. It's all virtual. So like 90 minutes online once a month, and you can connect with, and build a new peer group of other entrepreneurs. And we have a whole Summit curriculum we've put together.
Okay. And folks can find that again at summit.co, like I talked about in the intro. Well, you talk about values in the book, and that's my next question, which is perfect for our part 2 discussion. So we'll let people look forward to that a couple of days after that airs. Man, thank you for being here, and for your time, and just again, for the candor of your guys' story and the inspiration. I so appreciate it.
Perfect. Loved it. Thank you, Kevin.